Do you need help with your photography? This is the Wild Eye Podcast. Hey everybody, my name is Gerry, I'm from Wild Eye, and I've just returned from another week up in the Masai Mara hosting a photo safari. Now, for the better part of 18 years, maybe a little bit more if I include lodge-based guiding, I've been helping people to create better images, to be better photographers, to understand the craft more, to explore the creative side of the craft. But recently, over the last couple of months actually, from discussions I had with people on Svalbard all the way through to my last week, something keeps on coming up that I think is worth for us to explore. Because when you explore this theme, I think you might find in there something that you need in order to be a better photographer. So, before we go into the photography side of it, let's talk personal training. Let us say you know nothing. You know nothing about the body, about exercise, about fitness, about training. Right? You get a personal trainer and you go to this personal trainer. They're going to help you initially to understand what you need to do. That would look like, I don't know, let's look at a bicep curl. In order to do a bicep curl, you're going to hold the weight next to you. You're going to slowly keep your elbow still. You're going to bring the weight up, curling, bending the elbow. You're going to make sure you turn your pinky up towards the sky because that supinates the joint, which involves more muscle contraction. And then hold it at the top and slow you down. They're going to teach you how to do the movement, a squat, a lunge. Right. They're going to teach you the theory, so to speak, of how to do the thing. At the same time, they're going to tell you why to do the thing. So the how and the why becomes important. And I'm going to pull this to photography now. If you now spend time with your personal trainer when you start, and now it's 2 years later, okay, the chances of that personal trainer still having to tell you how to do the movement is very small. Because as you go, you're going to learn to do these things, and the trainer is going to be there to push you harder, to take you out of your comfort zone, not to teach you the movement over and over and over and over again. Make sense? So they're going to be designing your program. How do you combine bicep curls with tricep extensions? When and how should you do pushing exercises versus pulling exercises? So they're going to look at the bigger picture, and they're going to deploy all the exercises that they taught you how to do. They're going to deploy that into a program that makes you better. Again, if you are 2, 3, 4, 7 years down the line with a personal trainer, I would put big money on it that you're not going to be asking them, how do I do a bicep curl? Because they would have taught you that already. You see where I'm going with this? Now, if we look at photography, when you start new, you can do YouTube, you can do courses, you can come on our Wild Eye Safaris. And I've had many people over the years, so have my guides here, that have arrived for a safari, literally, here's my box, there are cameras in it, I just bought it, help me. And we start from scratch all the way through. Now, it seems to me, and I know this is a generalization, but I'm just throwing the idea out there. There's a lot of people doing photography, doing wildlife photography, that after 2 years, 4, 6, even in some instances like 11 years, they're asking the same questions that they would have asked when they were just beginning. What should my aperture be? How do I change over and under exposure? These are the things that once you get it, you need to stop fixating on. You need to stop obsessing about what. And you should be looking at why. The question is, if you go on trips again and again and again, and you said, I need your help, I need your help, I need your help. I think you need to ask yourself, why do you need that help? Is it because you don't know the basics of aperture and exposure, and you don't know how to approach a scene? Or is it because you've gotten stuck in a bit of a rut, and it's time for you to change something? I've had people over the last 18 years, 15 years, whatever it is, 20, actually, it's closer to 20 years, that 7 years down the line, they are still asking the question of, what should my aperture be? I don't know what to do in this scene. I'm sorry, but I call bullshit, because you do know. You do know what you need to do in order to get that shot. Now, the shot might not be an award-winning or a very creative shot, but you know what the benchmark is, what the settings should be for you to get a very good, sharp, clear image, pretty well composed. Why don't you start asking different questions then? That's something to me, because if you are not growing, and you at some stage you've got to take the training wheels off, right? if you're going to take me or one of my guides on a private guided trip and you're going to learn photography, right? Honestly, after the first, let's be generous. After the first 30 days of spent together, time in the field, you should know what aperture is. You should know how to set aperture. You should know how to compose and why. You should need to know what exposure compensation is. The variable for wildlife photography, as there is also the element of animal behavior that comes in. That element of animal behavior is the one variable that you could lean into your guide for and say, listen, what are we expecting this cat to do so that I can prep my image? Not what aperture must I use or what should I expose for? I think that the majority of people doing wildlife photography have crippled themselves by making themselves believe that they don't know what the aperture should be and what settings they should use. Again, I call bullshit. I think you do know. I think the question that you should be asking is, how can I tell a different story? How can I deploy the technical variables that I already understand? How can I deploy that in order to create different or creative images? That's the questions you should be asking. That's where the magic is. So if you're going to, let me loop back, if you're going to get myself or any other company, it doesn't matter, a photographer on to teach you the basics. If we are in our, 5th year and our 22nd, 27th, 4th, 5th safari together, and you're still asking the same questions, I think you might be wasting your money, because then you're not listening and you're not taking that information on in order to be better. The value of having a photo guide with you is to teach you the basics. If you're with your personal trainer 7 years later and you're still asking, how do I do a bicep curl? Because you don't know. You're wasting your money with that personal trainer, right? You should be asking, hey, can you just check my form for me? Because I know what to do. I know how to do the movement, but maybe just check it out for me. Draw that to photography. Look, I'm going to shoot this. Can you check it for me? 100%, because you put a little bit of confidence in your own self and your own ability, and you're just asking, hey, check this for me. The reason you would want to take a photographic guide with you on a trip or join a photo safari after you've done this a few times should not be to ask the same questions that really, if you're honest with yourself, you already know. You know what the aperture should be. You know I'm going to tell you, if you want to isolate the subject, use a wide open aperture because it's a small depth of field. You know this. You know that if there's highlights on the lion, you need to underexpose a bit, protect that. You know these things. But by having this training wheel, you're never leaning into your own photographic mind and your own photographic voice in order to be better. After the first 3 or 4 trips together, you should know the basics. The reason you want to travel with me and my guides then, or any other photographic guide that's worth his fees that they charge, is to push you out of your comfort zone, just like a personal trainer, to take you and to make you do different things that you already know how to do, but deploy it differently. Shoot different shutter speeds, not what is shutter speed and how do I set it. Why don't you try this? Look at that. A photographic guide, after you know, if you're asking the same questions, I think you're leaving huge image portfolios on the table. I think you should be honest with yourself, because we are so easy to lean into the things that support us and we don't have the confidence to stand up. Like if in the Mara, right, we rotate vehicles, so one day you have a guide, one day you don't, type thing. If you get anxiety because you don't have a guide with you on that day, but you've been photographing for 10 years, 6 years, 3 years, 2 years, and you are scared that you don't know what apertures to dial in, you need to look at your own understanding of the fundamentals. And guys, the reason I feel this strongly about it is because I see people hold themselves back. I see people not fulfilling their full potential as a photographer because they believe that they need to be coached through every single step of the way. You do not. You understand what it takes to create a good image. You understand how to change aperture. You understand how to change exposure compensation. You understand the mode you shoot in. If you've asked that question 27 times before and you still don't understand, that's up to you. You need to do the work for that. and sit down. But if you're asking the same thing, you are never going to grow as a photographer. You are never going to get past the point of just creating normal images. The photographic guide with you should be inspiring you, pushing you out of your comfort zone, making you look at things in a new way, not teach you the basics 7 years later. Is it a confidence thing? I don't know. Maybe people don't believe in their own ability because they don't do it full time. But we all know the answers to things. You know if you can create a good image. You know what it is that you're looking for in a scene. And again, to ask your personal trainer, hey, can you just check my form on the squat? Versus, how do I do a squat? Very different questions. And I think it sets up your headspace and your mindset for your photography or training in a different way. If you're going to keep on asking, how do I, you're going to feel like a beginner. You're going to feel, if you ask that question of how do I, you're going to feel like you don't know. But you do actually know. You should say, check my form. Or what do you think of this image that I created? Because you've taken that first step and you've decided, I'm going to do this on my own. Now let's go for feedback. And once your personal trainer, your photo guide, says to you, that's pretty cool, let's try this and that. That's where the growth is going to happen. But this idea, guys, you need to start believing in your own ability. You need to start leaning into the experience, the education, the knowledge, everything that we've given you. And you need to start believing, because then you're going to become a better photographer. When you start believing that you know what the setting should be, when you start believing you know what images you want to create, that's when your relationship with your photo guide and your personal trainer is going to become so much better, so much more productive. And that's where the results are going to happen. I hope this all makes sense. I think there's always a thing, and the same goes for Lightroom and Photoshop. If you keep on asking, how do I set the black point and the white point? Year after year after year, and you get shown year after year after year. It's the same as asking your personal trainer 7 years down the line, how should I do a squat? You know how to do a squat. Ask, can you give me variations on the squat? You know what I mean? And I think because art is, and photography is not, I think because it's such a creative endeavor that there's no metrics which we can use to measure and say, you are now better photographer. You'll know. There's no number you can put to it, but you'll know. Deep down, you do. Some people, I think, maybe just want the attention and say, hey, you're good. You're cool with what you do. Other people don't believe in themselves. But I think the takeaway here, if you're a photographer and you want to take your craft seriously, the takeaway for me is this. You need to start believing in your own ability. You need to start putting value to the fact that you've done X amount of safaris and workshops and own study, that you understand the basics, and that a photo guide isn't there as a training wheel once you know what to do. They're there to take you further and make you better, inspire you. That's, I think, where the real value is. And I would implore every single one of you who's a photographer, go and have a look at your images from when you started to now. It will be better. It has to be. If it's not, send me a message. We need to talk. But you will be better. That is the evidence you need, that you understand the basics and that you know what to do. Decide what questions you need to ask in order to be better. Not, how do I? Why should I? How can I? What can I do differently? Look at the questions you ask, and then you'll know where you are with your photography and what your next phase of growth is. Do you need help with your photography? In a lot of the instances that I've seen over the last few years, no. You know how to photograph. What you're looking for is inspiration and something different. The moment you put a name to that and you start understanding the difference, watch your photography change. I promise you, you're going to be better. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have comments, please let me know. If you're someone that struggles with their photography and you're honest with yourself, and 6 years down the line, 10, 11 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you find yourself still getting stuck on questions like, what aperture should I use? Or I don't know what to do if you've been doing it for a long time, let me know, because then we need to see. You need to fix something in order to be better. And you know what? Being better and asking different questions also makes the entire process a lot more pleasant and fun. promise you it does. I'm going to go. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for lending me your ears. If you have any questions, comments on this, please let me know. If you're a photographer, double down. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. It's time to step up. Do it differently. That's where the change is. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for lending me your ears. I will see you in the next episode. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Bye for now.